on very briefly, we're going to talk about demand. The law of demand states, ceteris paribus, there's an inverse relationship between price and quantity for consumers. Straight out of the book, if the price of the good increases, the quantity demanded decreases, while if the price of the good decreases, its quantity demanded increases. Now this is key language. It's not that demand decreases with a change in price, quantity demanded changes. So what do we mean by this? Is the difference between a shift and a movement. Before we get to that, why does it have a negative slope? Diminishing marginal utility, or less extra happiness, right? We talked about this last week when we gave the example of eating pizza. The first piece would be worth quite a lot, and each additional piece, it would be a diminishing marginal benefit, or a decreasing utility. This marginal benefit curve becomes our demand curve. Two other things to quickly point out. The income effect. At a high price, let's make this the market for apples. At a high price, say $5, the consumer will buy one apple. But at a price of $1, the consumer will buy 5 apples. Because what just happened to their income? They don't have more dollars, but a change in price changed the amount of work the dollars can do. So at a really high price, your income can't go as far, you buy fewer apples. At a low price, you buy a higher quantity of apples. The substitution effect states this: at a $5 price for apples, you may buy one, because what just happened to the price of oranges? Relatively speaking, they're not less. Whereas if the price of apples drops down to $1, what just happened relatively speaking to the price of oranges? They went up, so you buy more apples. You need to know these 3 reasons for the negative slope: the diminishing extra happiness, the income effect, and the substitution effect. Now when we get to the difference between a shift and a movement, this is crucial. One of the least understood things in economics. Econ professors say this when students come to study at the university. Okay, a shift versus a movement. A shift means we're going to have an entirely new demand curve, like shifting from D to D1 or from D to D2. It means that ceteris paribus has gone out the window. A movement is saying ceteris paribus, all you change is the price. And if you change the price from P to P1, the quantity demanded goes from Q to Q1. There's a movement from point A to point B. All you did was change the price. So a movement is like this, from here to here. A shift means something else changed, and you have a whole new graph you're working with. So throughout the whole class, a shift is going to be a change in demand, and a movement is going to be a change in quantity demanded. Will you have to read very carefully to pick up on that difference? Yes, every single time. So a change in demand is a shift, a change in the quantity demanded is a movement. Natural question next is, what would cause a shift? A movement is caused by a change in price. What causes a shift? There are 5 things. They spell the word inept. Okay? The first thing is income. Going back to apples, here's your initial demand curve, an inverse relationship. As you change the price, there's movement along the demand curve for apples. It'd be something like apples in September. But then imagine nationwide everybody's incomes go up. You would expect people to buy more apples, D to D1. Or across the country, incomes decrease, the demand for apples drop from D to D2. So a decrease is to the left, and an increase is to the right. And if you're having trouble seeing that, something that I tell students to do is to take that demand curve, see how perfectly these are drawn, and just pick a price, like right here, and read all the way across. And you can see initial quantity, less quantity, more quantity out here. Okay, number of buyers, population. If there's more people, demand increases from D to D1. Expectations, this is of future price. If you expect the price of apples to increase in the future, the demand would go up here in September. If you expect the price of apples to go down in the future, you would not buy them now, and the demand would drop from D to D2. Price of other goods, substitutes and complements. This one's a little trickier. We can do butter and margarine. Okay, if the price of butter decreases from P to P1, the quantity demanded of butter increases from Q to Q1. People are buying a higher quantity of butter. What is going to happen in the market for margarine? Demand drops. Did the price of margarine change? No. So the rule here is substitutes go in the same direction, and what I mean by that is if the price of butter decreases, the demand for margarine decreases. We can move in the other direction. I'll draw that in green. Imagine the price goes from P1 to P. The quantity demanded decreases, and the demand would increase. So the price of butter goes up, the demand for margarine will go up. And that should show you the difference between a movement and a shift. Okay? Complements are things you use together, like snowboards, price and quantity, and snowboard boots. Now 3 O's. Boots. Okay. If you lower the price of snowboards from P to P1, the quantity demanded of snowboards will increase. And when people are buying a higher quantity of snowboards, they need boots. Did the price of boots change? No, but the demand would go up. Now let's go in the other direction. Snowboards get more expensive. The price goes up, say from P to P2. Quantity decreases from Q1 to Q2. That's a movement. And what happens to the demand for snowboards? For boots. It drops from D1 to D2. And so that's a decrease in the demand. Did the price of the boots change? No, the boards did. And then, let's say tastes and preferences, fads. It's really cool to snowboard, the demand is going to shift to the right. It's really stupid to snowboard, demand is going to shift to the left. The one thing to add, and we'll draw this in class, is it depends on if it's a normal or inferior good in regard to income. What I mean here is that typically when income increases, demand increases. But that's only true if the good is normal, and that's the definition of a normal good, is that when you have more money, you buy more of it. So that would be something like new books, price, quantity. And you read that your income goes up and new books are a normal good, so your demand increases. But over here, an inferior good might be used books. And this would mean that in the market for used books, if your income goes up, your demand for used books decrease. And that's the definition of an inferior good, is if you make more money, you buy less of it, and if you make less money, you buy more of it. So this is Spam during the recession, it was increasing. Ham would be the normal good, and Spam would be the inferior good. We can practice that next class. Very last thing, you should know what a Giffen good is. It's when you have upward sloping demand. It's very rare. This is from Alfred Marshall. As Mr. Giffen has pointed out, a rise in the price of bread makes so large a drain on the resources of the poorer laboring families and raises so much the marginal utility of money to them that they're forced to curtail their consumption of meat and the more expensive farinaceous foods, and bread being still the cheapest food which they can get and will take, they consume more, not less of it. This would be that rare instance where the cheapest thing is going up in price and you still buy more of it because it's cheaper relative to everything else. That's it.